When we think of the grand buildings of Europe, such as Gothic cathedrals or Renaissance palaces, we often associate them with local influences or with Greco-Roman civilizations. But did you know that Africa also played a crucial role in the development of European architecture? From arches and mosaics to advanced construction techniques, the African legacy is much deeper than you might imagine. This is the story of how Africa influenced the architecture of Europe. The relationship between Africa and Europe in architectural terms begins in antiquity. In North Africa, the Roman Empire left an indelible architectural mark on cities like Carthage, Leptis Magna, and Volubilis. But this influence was not one-directional. African cities not only adopted, but adapted Roman architecture to their own context, incorporating local elements. These local elements included open courtyards, gardens, and geometric decorations that would later return to Europe with a new style. For example, the advanced hydraulic systems developed in North Africa influenced the construction of Roman aqueducts and public baths. Roman cities in Africa, such as Timgad in present-day Algeria, became urban models that inspired European cities centuries later. During the 8th century, Islamic expansion reached southern Europe, bringing with it a profound African influence. The Umayyads, who ruled much of the Iberian Peninsula, brought architectural styles of North African origin that combined with local traditions to give rise to a unique style. Mudejar art and architecture. The Great Mosque of Cordoba is a clear example of this fusion. Inspired by the traditions of the Berbers and Arabs of North Africa, its horseshoe arches and intricate mosaics redefined religious architecture in Europe. Similarly, palaces like the Alhambra in Granada incorporated African elements, such as open courtyards and reflective ponds. Decorative calligraphy on the walls of these palaces also reflects African influence. In Sicily under the Normans, a unique integration of African, Byzantine, and European styles occurred. Structures like the Palatine Chapel in Palermo showcase wooden ceilings carved in the Islamic style. During the Middle Ages, African influence on architecture came not only through conquest, but also through cultural exchange. Islamic universities such as those in Fez, Morocco, and Timbuktu, Mali, became centers of knowledge that attracted European scholars. In these institutions, architectural treatises were studied that contained advanced techniques, such as the construction of domes and arches. These ideas found their way to Europe and helped inspire some of the most notable advancements of the Renaissance. For example, the treatises on mathematics and geometry, essential for the architecture of cathedrals like the Duomo of Florence, were partly preserved and transmitted by African scholars. Another way Africa influenced European architecture was through the trade of materials and techniques. African marble, especially Numidian marble in present-day Algeria, was highly valued in Rome and remained a coveted material for centuries in Europe. Moreover, the technique of polychrome masonry, which involves combining stones of different colors to create decorative patterns, has roots in North Africa and was adopted in European constructions. This style can be seen in St. Mark's Basilica in Venice and in several Romanesque churches in Italy. In the 19th and 20th centuries, African influence reemerged in European architecture, this time through art and innovation. During the colonial period, European architects drew inspiration from African architectural elements, such as ventilated courtyards and geometric designs, to adapt them to warm climates in countries like Spain, France, and Italy. Additionally, in the 20th century, movements like Art Deco incorporated African patterns and motifs into iconic buildings in Paris and London. This style, although often marketed as exotic, reflected a recognition of the African impact on global design. Today, modern architects are increasingly acknowledging the debt Europe owes to Africa in architectural terms. This recognition is not only a matter of historical justice, but also an opportunity to explore new forms of collaboration and design. Recent projects, such as the design of sustainable buildings, inspired by African vernacular architecture, demonstrate how ancient African techniques, such as passive cooling and the use of local materials, are influencing contemporary ecological architecture. European architecture would not be what it is today without Africa's contributions. From the arches and domes that adorn cathedrals to the intricate mosaics and modern sustainable techniques, African influence is deeply rooted in the history and design of the European continent. The next time you see an iconic building in Europe, think of the stories of cultural exchange, trade, and creativity that made it possible. What do you think of this historical connection? Do you know other examples of African influence in Europe?